So the plan for the session, we're going to kick off with an introduction to STAR, Student Action for Refugees, and the Equal Access campaign that this presentation is part of. And then I'm going to run you through the process of applying to university. That won't be the focus of today's session, but that's just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And then we'll quickly move on to talking about financing your studies. So we'll talk about eligibility for student finance, and then what is a sanctuary scholarship, how to apply for sanctuary scholarships, the top tips that we have for you when you're applying. Then you'll hear, as I said, from university staff with their top tips, and then we'll finish off by telling you about an opportunity to get follow-up mentoring from STAR volunteers, and we'll hopefully have some time for questions at the end. Okay, so just then to kick off with an introduction to STAR. STAR is Student Action for Refugees, and we are a national charity, which is, the national team that myself and Becca are part of, but we're also a national network of students who are working across the UK to build a more understanding and just society where refugees are welcomed and can thrive. And our STAR groups do that in a number of different ways. They're involved in volunteering in their local community or in national projects like the Mentoring Project. They're involved in fundraising, and they're involved in lots of campaigning. And one of the biggest campaigns that STAR groups are part of is the Equal Access campaign. This is STAR's national campaign that we've coordinated since 2008. To ensure that people seeking refugee protection in the UK have equal access to higher education and can join us at university as equals. And we do that on a number of different levels. So our student groups, our STAR groups across the country, have been instrumental in securing scholarships and opportunities for refugees and people seeking asylum. And that's helped to increase the number of scholarships available from just a handful back in 2008 to now 75 in 2022. And STAR's equal access activists as well at a national level help to guide the campaign and use their experiences of accessing university themselves while seeking asylum or with a temporary immigration status to help others on their journey to higher education. And as I mentioned, we're really happy to be joined by Daniel today. Then there's STAR's Access to University Coordinator, that's myself, and I work directly with universities and partner organisations to try and coordinate the action that's happening across the sector and improve access across all higher education institutions in the UK. Alongside that, STAR works at all levels to raise awareness of the barriers to higher education and to publicise opportunities for refugees and people seeking asylum through events like this today. But what you'll see in that list, one thing that we don't do is administer scholarships ourselves. So we work with universities who administer scholarships, but it's the universities themselves who control those scholarships. And you'll hear us say quite a few times that if you have questions or concerns about the scholarships, it's always best to go directly to the university to ask a question. Okay, I wanted to kick off as well with a bit of myth busting, because depending on where you are in your application journey, you might have heard lots of things about applying to university while seeking asylum or from a refugee background. So to start off with, you might have heard that you're not allowed to study in the UK while seeking asylum, but I'm pleased to say that is false. You have the right to study while seeking asylum in the vast majority of cases. One thing though that it is important to check is on your immigration bail form, to make sure that you haven't been given what's called a study ban there. But even if you have, even if on your immigration bail form it says that you don't have the right to study, it may be that that was given in error. So it's always worth talking to a solicitor and double checking that. Secondly, you might be thinking if you are seeking asylum in the UK, you need to fund your own studies. It is true that while seeking asylum, you don't have access to student finance, which we'll be talking about in a bit more detail. But what we're here to tell you about today is the opportunity to get other types of funding from universities. So it's false that you need to fund your own studies yourselves, and there are opportunities out there to support you. And finally, you might be thinking that university applications are quick and easy, but sadly, this is also false. University applications can take quite a long time to prepare and to research. So a lot of what we'll be telling you about today might be something that you go away and think more about or research more about, but hopefully you won't feel that it's too difficult, or certainly you won't feel that you're alone in finding it a little bit challenging. Okay, an overview then of how to apply to university in the UK. I'll start off with undergraduate applications, so bachelor's degrees. As I say, we're not going into detail today, but we did, back in November, we ran an information session about UCAS applications that Becca will pop in the chat now. You can rewatch that on YouTube to get up to speed if this is the first time you're hearing about undergraduate applications. But the general process, you can see it's quite a long-term application process. You're starting in 1 year, usually, to apply and receive offers to start your course the following year. And what you'll always start with is researching courses and universities to find the right options for you. So if this is the start of your journey now, we're in February, you might be at the stage of researching and finding what's right for you. Then you start to prepare your UCAS application, and the UCAS portal, that is the University and Colleges Admission Service, will open over the summer. You can then submit your UCAS application usually between September and January. So you might have just submitted it because the deadline was very recently, it was the 26th of January. Then you might be waiting for offers from universities before then finally taking up one of those offers and starting your course. Okay, so we're February, so you might be researching around about here, or you might have submitted and you might be waiting for offers. If you haven't submitted your application before the deadline, but you're still really keen to apply and attend university this year, have a look at the UCAS blog that Becca's shared in the chat as well, to see kind of more about submitting a late application, which can be possible if you get in touch with the university first. And there are lots of other resources as well, so you'll receive these slides after the session. There are lots of other resources that you can use to help you prepare your application. So do take a look at that if you're still at the stage of preparing your undergraduate application. If you're looking at postgraduate applications, so that's a master's or a PhD, you'll see the process is very similar. There are just two differences here. One difference is that you apply directly to the university rather than through UCAS. The other difference, the dates have been taken out here because it's a little bit more flexible, and it varies depending on your course and the university that you're applying to. So if you're looking for postgraduate courses, then check the individual course that you're applying to and make sure you're aware of when the deadline is. Okay, but wherever you are in your process of looking at and applying for university, something that it's really good to think about right from the early stages of your research is how to fund that university study. And where applicants usually start is with the question of student finance. So student finance refers to low interest loans that are available to help you cover your tuition fees and your maintenance, so your living costs while you study. And this is how the majority of students in the UK usually fund their studies. To find out if you are eligible for student finance, these are some things that you need to consider. So it can vary depending on your immigration status, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. It can also vary depending on where in the UK you are resident, how long you've been resident here. It can vary as well depending on previous study. So even if that study was overseas, if you've studied at an equivalent level before, you might not be eligible for student finance. And it can vary depending on what course you're applying for. So there are there's different finance available at postgraduate compared to undergraduate level, for example. So have a look at the UKISA and the gov.uk websites to find out if you are eligible for student finance. And if you are eligible and you're happy to apply, do make sure that you apply early, because it can be quite a long process. And there are often documents that you need to show to prove that you are eligible. In terms of immigration status, I mentioned that it varies depending on your immigration status and also where you are in the UK. The general picture is that while you are seeking asylum, you are not eligible for student finance. If you have a different status as a result of an asylum claim, you might be eligible. Just double check, as I said, all of the other rules that come along with it, such as the previous study that you might have. And here as well is a snapshot of some other things that you might want to consider while you're applying. If you're considering working to fund your studies, consider if you have the permission to work. And also consider what you'll be classed as for student fees. If you are seeking asylum, or if in some cases, if you have limited leave to remain, you might be classed as an international student for fees purposes, which means that you pay a higher rate of fees. So double check that before you apply. But one thing to add to that is that universities do have the ability to charge home fees at their own discretion. So some universities will charge home fees to people who are seeking asylum. Again, look at the UKISA website for more detail. This is just a snapshot, so have a look at the UKISA website for a much more detailed overview of that. Scholarships then, if you aren't eligible for student finance, or even if you are, but you want to look for additional financial support, scholarships are an option. And we tend to talk about sanctuary scholarships as a generic term. So sanctuary scholarships are packages of financial support provided by universities to help people who face barriers to higher education because of their immigration status. They might have different names. So at a university you're applying to, it might be called an Article 26 scholarship or an equal access scholarship. If you're not sure what to look for, take a look at the STAR website. Just jump to this quickly. And here we collect all of the different scholarships that exist for people who are seeking asylum or from a refugee background. If you already have a university in mind that you definitely want to go to, you can just type the name in here and go to that university directly. If you're still at the stage of exploring right now, you can filter this table. So if you're living in London, you can show just the London universities. If you're only looking for a master's, you can filter it down to masters. And depending on your immigration status, so if you have refugee status, you can narrow it down there. And then you'll see at a snapshot what is available for you. This is, though, just a collection of, or a summary of the scholarships. The first thing you'll want to do is go to the website here, where you'll get the more detailed and up-to-date information. You'll see right now, some of them are still TBC, to be confirmed, because we're at the stage of the year where universities are redeveloping their scholarships, or some might not be currently available. It's worth if that is the case, it's worth reaching out to the university if you have any concerns or questions, and checking back regularly to see if there have been any updates. Okay, but you'll see, even just from glancing at that list, that these scholarships are quite varied. So they're, as I've already mentioned, they are controlled by individual universities. And so the universities set the rules for the scholarship. And they can therefore be quite varied in terms of eligibility. So who is eligible to apply based on things like your immigration status or your location occasionally. They might be varied in terms of what courses are covered. So sometimes longer courses, such as medicine, might not be involved. They also offer different levels of financial support. So it varies from a fee waiver, which means that you don't pay any fees, up to sometimes a full bursary, a financial package that covers your living costs. Or some universities offer in-kind support, which means that you receive, rather than money, you receive something like accommodation or vouchers or materials that will help you with your studies. And they also all have a different application process. So they have a different application form, different opening and closing dates. And that's why it's really important to check the individual university's website. And while you're doing that, while you're going through the list and doing your research, some other things to consider. It's really worth thinking about if the support offered is sufficient for you. So you will know your own circumstances and what you need to support you throughout your studies. If the scholarship only offers perhaps a few £100s a year, that might not be enough to cover all of your costs if you don't have any other additional support. So then you might want to look for a more generous scholarship. Or if it offers in-kind support, so a place in university accommodation, but you want to stay living where you currently live, that might not be appropriate for you. So do kind of look into the practicalities of what the university offers. Two other things to be aware of as well: if you're in receipt of asylum support or in legal aid, then receiving a scholarship can affect your entitlement to that. Particularly if you are receiving a cash bursary rather than in-kind support. So if that is the case for you, do seek guidance, ideally from a solicitor, before taking up a scholarship. Okay, and then just to kind of link back to the overall process of applying to university, you generally apply for university before you apply for scholarships. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be thinking about scholarships quite early on, because as it says here, you want to choose a course at a university that has scholarships. So make sure, if you are relying on a scholarship, make sure the university you're applying to offers a scholarship that suits you before then submitting an application, either through UCAS for an undergraduate degree, or as I mentioned, directly to the university for a postgraduate degree. Usually you will then receive an offer from that university before applying for the scholarship. This is the general picture. So you apply for the university, receive an offer, and then apply for the scholarship. A caveat though is that it can be different for each programme. Some universities won't require you to have an offer before you apply, so do check that. But in most cases, you do need to have certainly applied or even received an offer before you apply for the scholarship. With that, I'm going to hand over to Daniel, who's going to talk a bit more about the application process and give his top tips for you.
Yeah, thank you, Saron. Thank you, Saron. So as was mentioned at the beginning, my name's Daniel. I am part of the Equal Access Activist Network. I received a sanctuary scholarship myself when I was studying quite a few years ago. I studied at the University of Winchester, and of course, a lot of my experiences, things that you can maybe draw from when you are looking for what sort of scholarship will work best for you. So what I'm going to talk about is split into three parts, basically the research and preparation, supporting statements, and references. So we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so research and preparation, a very important step in the whole process. You need to know, of course, there are so many different types of scholarships with various details. within like eligibility criteria and just what these different scholarships will offer. So of course we know we know that there's the list that STAR has of all the different universities, all the different scholarships available. So you just need to make sure that you do your research and know what's right for you. In my experience, I live in Portsmouth. So when I was preparing to apply to university, I wanted to stay within my area. So I looked at the universities within my area and I sort out which ones could provide the scholarship that I needed, and which eventually led to me going to the University of Winchester. So of course, in that process, what was important for me to do is to find out as much as I could about the university, what the scholarship details were, and which is the second point on the slide. But the third point is just to read the application guidance very carefully. So of course, if you have questions, if you're not sure about something, if you have any queries, the best thing you can do is to contact the university and ask directly. In my situation, the details of my scholarship was that it's for people that are local. So of course it worked out perfectly. I stayed in Portsmouth and was able to commute to my university, and that was part of my scholarship sort of package in a sense. So next slide, please. So of course you can have so many different questions that pop up for you, and this is very much individual basis. Of course, when I share from my experience, that's very particular to at that specific time. There weren't as many scholarships available when I was applying to university, and thankfully there are lots more scholarships available now, and also available in different geographies. So I'm sure there are quite a few people across the country on this call. So you'll need to ask loads of questions such as, do you meet the eligibility criteria? So whether that's your immigration status, whether you studied before, all the things that Siobhan was mentioning earlier. You'll need to think about whether the scholarship will cover the course you want to study. Of course, Siobhan mentioned briefly that for lots of cases, medicine, for example, isn't covered. Nursing is another example. So you'll need to know, okay, the course I want to study at university, this course I'm applying for, am I going to be able to get a scholarship for it? Another important thing is to sort of decide whether the university is a good fit for you. Of course, there's so many universities across the country, and there are, thankfully, again, I mentioned already that there are more scholarships available than there used to be. So you do have more of a choice in terms of which university you can apply to. So I think just the whole step of when you are looking at open days, it's getting a good feel for the university. Of course, if you are successful in receiving a Sandry scholarship, that's an amazing thing. But of course, through your university, you need to think about what your university life will be like and how you'll be able to really be a student in a certain university space. So these are important questions to consider. And of course, yeah, there are more examples on the screen. So next slide, please. Another important aspect that you'll need to sort of prepare for are your supporting statements. So this is your opportunity to really explain why the scholarship will make a difference for you. Of course, we know that applying for scholarships is competitive. Of course, we know that there will be many other people that are applying for the same scholarship, and there's only a limited number of scholarships available. So this is your opportunity just to really show yourself off in a sense, just to show them why you should receive the scholarship. So this may include how the scholarship will help you fulfill your future goals. And it can also include things such as the barriers to education that you have had to overcome. So in my experience when I was applying to my scholarship, I was able to talk about my experiences living in the UK, going through the education system from secondary school, college, up to applying to university. That sort of like journey and how the scholarship will enable me to carry on in that education sort of story, that my personal narrative. So of course, yeah, this is just an opportunity for you to really show why you should receive a scholarship. Next slide, please. Okay, so of course, again, with different universities, different scholarships, they're going to have sort of different guidelines for the type of statements that they're looking for. So what we have here is two examples of personal statements that a university can ask for. So one from Nottingham. So this one here is going to be asking for something short, around 500 words, which will address like your personal family circumstances, the barriers you've had to overcome to pursue your education. And yeah, they just give guidance on how you should focus your statement in terms of your current status. And going on, it talks about how they want you to go into why you've chosen to study at the University of Nottingham, why you've chosen your particular course, and to describe the ambitions you have and how the award will help you to achieve these. Of course, the award, speaking of the scholarship we offer. So yeah, following down your financial circumstances and how you have funded your education so far and how you plan to fund your living costs while studying at the university. So of course we can pick up on the detail here. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that Nottingham doesn't provide accommodation as part of their scholarship. Yeah, Siobhan's. Yeah. So that they said here, okay, you're going to need to show how you will be able to fund or to manage your living costs while studying at university, because our particular scholarship doesn't provide for this particular aspect, your accommodation. So you're going to need to show how you can meet these requirements that we have set for the scholarship through your personal statement. So another example, if we go to the next slide, is from Strathclyde. So here it's slightly different. It's more speaking of how your previous study career has prepared you for your proposed course, how your migration experience has affected your access to education, and how Strathclyde can help you to achieve your personal goals, as well as how your studies will help you contribute to the wider community. So this is more similar to what my personal statement looked like. I studied psychology, so I really spoke about how I want to contribute back to my community. Of course, I was speaking earlier about my personal narrative going through education, and yeah, just how it will continue on through my time at university. So yeah, I would really encourage you all to notice if you are applying to multiple scholarships, just notice the details of the sort of guidance that's applied. It's not one fits all. It's not a one fit all sort of situation. So I'll really advise you to sort of like tailor if you're applying to multiple scholarships, tailor your personal statements to the guidelines of specific universities. But yeah, that's that. Next slide, please. Okay, so references. This can be something that's slightly tricky. Of course, each university, again, will provide guidelines about how to go about this, but it's ideal for your referee to be someone that you've known, that knows you and be able to describe why you should receive the scholarship. And yeah, so some universities will specify a specific length of time for that your referee has supposed to have known you for. But yeah, it's really important to just read the guidelines, know what the university is asking for. I think sometimes the situation can be if you're struggling to find a referee, you can get in contact with the university. Not all universities will ask for a referee, and yeah, there can be some flexibility in terms of getting references. Yes, so it says right there, not all universities will ask for a reference. So yeah, Siobhan has just mentioned there that they'll be sharing the slides afterwards. So yeah, all this information will be available to you after this meeting. So I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, and just another point I forgot to mention about referees or references. the specific type of the roles that you can use for your referee will vary. So sometimes it can be a lawyer, sometimes it can be a teacher that you know. So yeah, it's just best to, this is like the golden rule, just check with the university, ask someone, speak to someone, and they can help you through that. So yeah, the key takeaways, if you are unsure about anything, contact the university. Is great. There are people, of course, who are about to hear from, Isabelle and Mike. So it's best to contact the university and to just speak to someone that can help. Use the application to show how the scholarship will help you to reach your goals. And if you're unsuccessful, try again. Of course, it can be tough to get a rejection. But as I mentioned before, these things are scholarships, the application process, it is competitive. I have some people that I know that have applied 1 year, that were rejected, they applied again, and they're able to get in. So I hope that can give you some hope if you are unsuccessful. But with all this information, you have all the, hopefully this will equip you to be able to prepare to submit a successful application. So I think that's everything from me. I can pass back to Siobhan. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sorry, I said Mike. Martin, please forgive me.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Yeah, and we will be sharing the slides, and also a lot of what Daniel just said is available in more detail in our scholarships guidance document that we'll pop in a link to in the chat. That we developed with our equal access activists and with university staff last year. So do go away and have a read of that for more detailed advice. But yeah, keep on, thank you for all the questions in the chat. We're going to come to those in a few minutes, so keep on posting any questions that you have. But now I'd like to hand over to Martin Irwin from the University of Glasgow.
Thanks, Siobhan, and just apologies for the really messy slide. There was some technical issues, so that's why it's so busy. But yeah, so I'm just going to give a brief overview of the scholarships that are on offer at Glasgow, and then also talk a bit about some of the kind of common things that tend to come up. So for ours, it's called the Humanitarian Scholarship, and there are two streams. So the first stream is for asylum seeking students, and the second is for refugee students, and the sort of the provision of each stream varies accordingly. So for recipients of the asylum seeking scholarship, it's a full fee waiver at the home rate. You would also get a £5,000 stipend per year of study. And I would just echo what Siobhan said earlier, that I think, you know, that's quite a large amount of money, so it probably would have an impact on your situation. So definitely run it by your lawyer if you were to be offered it. And also, if you need it, there is student accommodation for the duration of the course. So depending on whether it's undergraduate or postgraduate, you would be placed in the relevant student accommodation. So for refugee students, it's a bit different because you have access to public funds. So it's a £2,500 stipend per year of study. The scholarship is for undergraduate and postgraduate taught degrees, but there is, as Daniel was saying, there is a list of eligible courses on that page that's linked at the top. So yeah, some courses aren't included, and there's also there's no PhDs included as well. So it's purely undergraduate and postgraduate taught, and you complete it. Sorry, you submit your application by filling in the application form, and then also submitting the required documents via email by the submission date. So yeah, that's a kind of broad overview. In terms of the sort of common things that tend to come up, it's as has been said already, the scholarship is only open to offer holders, so it's people who have applied, so you can't make a speculative application, unfortunately. The asylum seeker stream of the scholarship is limited to one per college, which makes it even more sort of competitive. So at Glasgow we have 4 different colleges. So for example, the College of Arts, the College of Science and Engineering, College of Medical, Veterinary and Life Sciences, and another one that I've forgotten. So it's one scholarship per college, so that's something to be aware of. There's no such limit. There's no such restriction on the refugee stream. It's quite flexible, although we do like to try and spread it out where possible. Another thing that you quite often see is that people submit the form, but then they don't follow up and submit the required documents by the deadline. So if you do apply, then definitely do remember to submit the documents as well. Just follow the instructions that are on that page, really. And the personal statement, the supporting statement, probably best to write it somewhere else. So whether that's in Word or a notepad or something like that, so that when the time comes you can just paste it in to the relevant section of the form, because it's always possible that you'll get timed out. It must be in English, and again, just sort of picking up on what Daniel was saying, focus on the future. So a lot of the time people, I think they sometimes think that they need to explain their whole sort of situation prior to that point, and that's not the case, really. We're looking to see what the scholarship would mean to you and your future and the future of your family and, you know, society at large. So don't feel as if you have to kind of tell us all about your situation, and that's really it. It's a lot of the advice that's already been shared is relevant to Glasgow and other universities as well. So yeah, happy to take questions at the end.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Martin. And now just to get a picture of a slightly different scholarship and how it can vary at different universities, we'll be hearing from Isabelle from Birkbeck, University of London. Over to you, Isabelle.
Brilliant. Thanks, Siobhan. And yeah, thanks to Martin and Daniel as well. I think particularly the advice that Daniel offered, please do listen to it, because everything that he said was spot on. And I think that if you're going to start anywhere, just sort of going through the advice that Daniel's offered will be a really good, it will place you in a very good position to hopefully get onto one of the scholarship programs. So I'm going to speak a little bit now about Birkbeck University, and I've been running the scholarships now for almost 3 years, and as part of the sort of scholarship offer, we also sort of support people to go on to apply to universities after their kind of 1-year program with us as well. So I sort of see it from both sides of people applying to Birkbeck and then also helping them to apply to other scholarships later. So I've got a few tips of my own to hopefully share with you. The Compass project is what we refer to at Birkbeck as it's our sanctuary offer, basically. It's our scholarship program, and it's very much a stepping stone back into education is how we describe it. We don't offer sort of full degree programs or sponsorship for degree programs at undergraduate level. We offer sort of certificates that will allow you to get back into education if perhaps you have been out of education for a number of years. Perhaps you're an older student who hasn't studied for, sometimes we get people applying, they've not studied for 20 years. It's very much meant to be a supportive package to encourage you back into education. And then we do, in addition to that, have a few postgraduate places as well, and that's for master's courses, and that's for the whole master's degree program. For our particular program, as with most of the universities out there, we do want you to apply for the course ahead of applying for the Sanctuary Scholarship. For Birkbeck, you don't necessarily need to use UCAS because you aren't necessarily applying for a full undergraduate degree program, but you might be applying for one of our other programs. So that's just something to perhaps bear in mind. and we do sort of we can support you in that process as well. And the support that's sort of offered is very much from, you know, the kind of initial application stage, even before that, actually, the kind of exploring stage, what do you want to study, onto kind of enrolment, orientation, and right through to graduation. So it is a sort of complete package of support. I should say that we haven't sort of announced our scholarships yet for this year, as Siobhan was sort of saying previously. We're one of the universities that haven't kind of made up our minds about our scholarship offer yet this year. So hopefully we will be making some announcements quite soon. And the best place to maybe find out about those scholarships will be on the STAR website. At Birkbeck in particular, some of the things that we do look for in applications, and this very much comes through, I think, via the sort of statement stage. And as Daniel sort of showed you before, there are sort of these statements. Sometimes they ask you to kind of follow a specific question and answer framework, or you're, sorry, or perhaps you're expected to include that within the statement itself. So we do have that sort of framework at Birkbeck. We ask you to write a statement, but it's sort of split up into 4 questions, and some of the examples that he showed are very similar to our ones as well. I think the main thing that we do look for is we want you to sort of demonstrate your preparedness for study. So when I say like demonstrate this, we want to see examples of how you have perhaps been preparing for university, particularly as our scholarship offer is for people, or is designed for somebody who's been out of education for a while. So we want to see that we want to see that you're keen, that you've been doing your research, yeah, you sort of been accessing all the programs that you could possibly access ahead of coming to study with us. That's just as much for your benefit as it is for ours, because we do find the people that come onto the programme who have done lots of research, who have perhaps participated in free online materials, you know, even accessing things like YouTube educational series. People have a better understanding about maybe what it is that you're expected to do when you are in that first very, very busy term at university. So if you can demonstrate some of the things that you've done to prepare for university, it'll be really beneficial to your application. Again, researching the university and showing off your knowledge. As everybody sort of emphasised here today, they are competitive. So the scholarships are really an opportunity to show, you know, you're applying to this university, show this university why that institution is the best one for you to study at. So researching and putting that into your application is key. Do attend as many open days, information sessions as possible. Even if you're pretty sure that you know the process of applying to that scholarship, attend the information session anyway, because there may be more information, more tips that come out of those sessions that will support you in your application as well. And also going back to what was previously said about the reference, if you don't have, you know, a specific referee that comes to mind, do not worry, get in touch with the university and just sort of explain, you know, I'm not really sure who to put down, and they'll be able to give you a little bit more advice. But that is a sort of common thing that comes up time and time again, is people maybe worrying that they don't have the correct referee to put down. Usually it's not sort of completely essential. At Birkbeck, we do ask for one. But we sort of kind of, you know, maybe speak to you and we find a really good solution if perhaps you don't have an immediate person that comes to mind. Yeah, so it's just something to maybe bear in mind. And to kind of reiterate, always ask if you're unsure. I know universities can be a bit tricky to kind of get somebody on the end of the phone sometimes, or even get people to apply, but don't let that put you off. Like, do send those queries out and somebody will get back to you. And if they haven't, don't sort of feel shy or anything. Send another email just to remind them. So do get in touch with somebody if you are a bit unsure about any of the processes as well. I also put down here, and I just want to reiterate it because it has, Martin mentioned it as well. Remember that in sort of these applications that you're writing, you will be revealing part of yourself. So do remember that anything that you do reveal it's your story. So you can decide how you want to tell it and what sort of is necessary to perhaps the application, and maybe what's not necessary to the application. So do remember that it is your story and it's completely up to you how you want to tell it. It's not going to be the sort of defining thing within the apapplication which will mean that you get it or perhaps not. Sorry, I think somebody's mic just turned on then. Also, just to again reiterate what Daniel said, there are lots of different opportunities out there, so don't be put off if perhaps you don't get onto the scholarship first time round. Do your research, keep on applying, and keep on sort of asking for maybe feedback or even ask to speak to some current students at that university, because there will be opportunities for you to get a scholarship. And it can be a little bit demoralizing if you don't get something straight away, but just keep that determination, keep that motivation up. And also, I know that we have looked upon applications really favourably if they didn't get it last year, but they've still got the enthusiasm and the passion to come back and apply again. That shows that you're really, really dedicated to that opportunity. So don't let that put you off. Do come back and do keep applying, because hopefully it will work out in the long run. Brilliant. Thank you, Siobhan.
Thanks so much, Isabelle, and hopefully that's reassuring to hear from university staff members themselves. Do reach out if you've got questions. They are lovely people, as you can tell, and they are happy to help. Okay, and then just to say, there are, obviously this was a bit of a whistle-stop tour today, there are other places where you can get support. So if you have a look on the resources and support page of the STAR website, you can see links to all of these different ways of getting either direct support, peer support, or finding other resources to help you on your journey. And you will also have the opportunity to sign up to some mentoring sessions with STAR volunteers. So I think Becca is about to post in the chat. You can register your interest in joining us for 2 mentoring sessions. We have trained our STAR volunteers to support you step by step along the scholarship application process. If you're available on these dates, and particularly if you have already applied to university and are currently applying for scholarships, we'll try our best to get you a spot. And they'll be able to provide general guidance for you to help kind of put all of the advice that you've heard today into practice. So there's the link in the chat. Do register your interest, and we'll hopefully see you there. So questions, I've seen some great questions in the chat. And Becca, are you all right to kick us off?
Yeah, sorry. Loads of great questions. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted them already. And please, if you do have any more, keep posting them and we'll try and get through as many as possible. So the first question we had is, are all scholarships for refugees just available within the UK, or are there scholarships available for refugees who are currently residing outside the UK, such as ones that exist in the US?
Great question. We work with UK universities, and our campaign focuses on people who are resident in the UK, but some scholarship programs do include people who might be applying overseas. So the University of Dundee is an example that you can take a look at. I would also, though, recommend looking at UNHCR's website, specifically UNHCR Opportunities. If you have a look at that platform, that is an international platform of scholarships that are available that will tell you much more about other countries. But yeah, we're focused on people who are resident in the UK.
Thanks, Siobhan. The next question we had is, are there any other bodies that give scholarships outside of universities?
Yeah, I just put in the chat a link to our additional financial support page. If your university doesn't offer a scholarship, or if you're doing a certain course like a healthcare course, there are other scholarships available that are more generic. there aren't many, but there are a few that are listed there. And if you click on the grants tab on that page as well, there are some smaller grants that are available, perhaps for a short course or to help you cover other educational costs. If you need support buying additional books, for example, there are other pots of money that you can apply to there.
Thank you. Quite a few questions about IELTS as well. So firstly, how do you show that you meet the IELTS language requirements if you have to do that after the submission, and also whether or not GCSE English could replace IELTS for postgraduates?
Yeah, the English language requirements are set by the university, so check with the university what they will accept. Sometimes they'll accept alternative things other than IELTS, so it's worth checking. And I don't know, Martin or Isabelle, if you want to come in on with any additional advice on that.
Yeah, I would say definitely, Siobhan, do check, because there will be different requirements. We're able to be a bit more flexible with that type of thing, but I wouldn't want to say that, because I don't think that's the same with lots of other institutions. So I would say, yeah, have a look, get in touch with them and ask. But generally speaking, if you have a level 2 English or a GCSE, I know lots of universities will look on that favourably as well. And there are also opportunities to perhaps get tuition or support with IELTS as well. I believe there are some organisations that can help with that, if you're interested in studying for them as well.
Yeah, for us, it's kind of the same picture. We're quite flexible. So some programs do require certain levels for IELTS or ESOL, but yeah, it's worth getting in touch just to find out, because there is quite a lot of flexibility there.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, just to reiterate as well, to those of you who have asked specific questions about specific universities and their requirements, as Martin, Isabelle and Siobhan have said, please do ask, because each university will have individual requirements. So if in doubt, check with them first, please. Next question we've got is about, I think this might be in relation to something you were talking about, Martin, actually, about what a fee waiver means.
So yeah, a fee waiver is just that. So for the recipients of the asylum seeker scholarship, we would just waive their fees, so they wouldn't have to pay their fees at all. It would be or it's dependent on people being classed as at home for fee purposes, but that's all sort of handled in the background anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, that's essentially just what it means. It's just that you don't have to pay any fees. Thanks,
Martin. And then another question is, when was the deadline for the scholarships at Glasgow?
So it opens in I think it says on the webpage, springtime. So it's not exactly helpful, but it's I think it's usually around about March time, I think, and it will stay open until I think it's early June, and then you'll have a decision by the end of June. So just that page that I linked, or just keep checking the website basically.
Great, thank you. Siobhan, is this information for postgraduate students as well as for undergraduate students?
Yes, yeah, definitely. As I mentioned at the start, there's a different application process for your actual course, but in terms of scholarships, it tends to be similar for scholarship applications. It's more about checking the individual university scholarship and what they say. Yeah, sorry, just wanted to jump back to IELTS, because I've noticed that we forgot to respond specifically to kind of submitting your IELTS later on. Yeah, I think usually the university is happy to receive that before you start the course rather than before you apply for the scholarship. But again, if you're not sure about how they want to receive that or when they want to receive it, do check with the individual university, because and hopefully they have contact details on the scholarship webpage, because they will have their own requirements there.
Thanks, Siobhan. And then just had a couple of questions as well about whether expired IELTS can be considered as a proof of language requirement, and how to let UCAS or the universities know.
Yeah, again, that will depend on how flexible the university is willing to be and if they are willing to accept other qualifications instead. So I would check with the university there. Just to say as well that if you do have kind of specific concerns about your application, do sign up to the mentoring. These are the types of questions you'll be able to dig into and work through it in a much more detail with your mentor. And I'm also conscious that it's 6:30 now. So Becca and I will stay on to carry on answering questions, but do feel free to head off, and we will share the recording and the slides with you afterwards. And thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thank you everyone so much. And please do sign up for the mentoring project if you're interested.
Yeah, but for now, yeah, we'll carry on answering questions.
Quite a lot of specific ones about specific individual universities and situations, but again, I think perhaps might be most useful covered at mentoring sessions. One question about UCAS, that is, you have to pay a fee using a debit card. Is there a way to apply via UCAS when you choose, when you say that you're a refugee, that you can waive this fee in the UCAS application?
Great question. Not easily directly through UCAS. There are the grants that I mentioned that are on the list on the STAR website that you may be able to apply for. But actually, I think it's best to talk to the university about this. Martin actually brought to my attention a way in which the university can work with you to waive the fees. Yeah, go ahead.
It's quite complicated. Well, I find it complicated anyway. It's called recognition of prior acceptance, and you can, essentially form an agreement with the university of your choice, and the agreement is basically stating that they are happy to give you the offer and that you will accept the offer, and then you can send, or rather they would send on your behalf, your application to UCAS. And that doesn't cost you any money. It costs the university money, but it's money that they would be paying anyway, so it's not too big a deal. Also, for us, it depends. So if you're doing like some sort of preparatory course, then there's a chance that they're a UCAS. I think it's called application centre, in which case they could pay your fees on your behalf. So we've got a pre-entry course called Access, and that's a UCAS centre. So our students that are on that can get their fees covered, their UCAS fees covered.
Thanks, Martin. I can see a couple of people have their hands up. Stephanie H, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. So thank you for this meeting. Actually, I'm in college and I'm taking ESOL course level 1. And after this course, I would like to apply to university, but for a master's degree. So my question is, what happened with a master's degree? So if I want to study in any university, do I have access to study a master's degree or not? And the second question is about the student support, because I have already my degree, so I would like to study my master. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. If your question is about the kind of academic requirements, that's something to check with the specific master's course that you're interested in, to see kind of what exactly they ask for, and also how the university judges the previous degree that you have. If the university struggles to translate your degree to the UK context, you can use a service called ENIC. I'll pop that in the chat, ENIC. They offer a statement of comparability that will help to show that your previous degree is the level that you need to apply for a master's. It will just be a question of your English language qualification as well. As we have already mentioned, different universities have different English language requirements. So yeah, start looking at courses that you're interested in and see what the exact academic requirements are. And then also see if the university offers a scholarship that covers master's level study. I hope that sort of answers your question.
Great, thanks, Siobhan. If that, yeah, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, hopefully that's answered your question. Just had a quick question to ask whether there are any scholarships for PhD students.
Yes, there are. Yeah, if you go to the scholarships list, and as I mentioned on course type, if you just click PhD, it will narrow it down to the ones that are open to PhD students.
And then we've had a question about what happens if you make a mistake in your UCAS form. This one's quite a specific one, but this had two actually about what you can do if you do. This one says that they've said that they're studying at home, but they now may move to another city, and is that too serious in terms of applying to financial services?
Yeah, get in touch with UCAS customer service. They're really good, and they will be able to help you with that and talk you through what you need to do.